Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say we have Darragh today, who's head of online and just a specialist in e-commerce in general. Darragh, how are you doing?
Tom, all good, and you?
Yeah, very good, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Darragh, can we start off by you telling our audience a little bit about yourself and your career to date, please?
Sure. I suppose, firstly, Tom, thanks for having me on. Been listening to it over the last couple of weeks, really enjoying it. So, yeah, it's very interesting to hear from other industry professionals. So, I guess keep up the good work on the podcast. I'm sure I speak for many in that regard. So yeah, myself. So I guess I'm 38 years old at the moment, just gone. Been working in e-commerce. Well, nearly 20 years. It's just most of my lifetime at this stage. So I guess where did it start? I guess I've always been kind of obsessed with technology from the time I was very, very young. Um, had the opportunity, I guess, upon leaving school to go study something in tech. The other thing going on in my life at the time would have been sports. I had a kind of an opportunity to pursue that as well. So I actually took a year out, kind of post doing the leaving cert, with the idea of kind of pursuing the sport end of it. So, of course, typical fashion, I ended up doing neither of those things and not going to college and not particularly pursuing the sport so well. So, I went straight into work. um, Along with my mother and father, actually, we opened a bit of a family business, which was started as an internet cafe. It seemed like a really, really good idea in about 2004. Um, of course, figured out that you really need to be doing a lot of kind of auxiliary services in order to make any sort of money out of running an internet cafe. If you can imagine, we had 10 computers. You're charging €4 an hour. You're not making a lot of money. So out of necessity, kind of started to learn a little bit about web design. So I kind of got into it. That was my kind of start in digital, I guess. Like I say, completely through necessity. Had to basically learn to build a company website for us, and then kind of from that started selling that service on. Um, from that was Access Point, our company back then. We moved on to I kind of had got a bit of a bug for graphic design around that time, so I actually took a job with a newspaper, a local newspaper, basically designing ads in the paper, and then kind of enjoyed that for a little while. Took a role with a sign writing company in Athlone, Spectrum Signs. Shout out Paul. Um, Took that role again. That was a real step up in terms of the I suppose skill set required in terms of that large format design. So complete change from what I'd been doing. Did that for a couple of years and then kind of went out on my own, which I think was probably the natural progression for what I was always likely to do, was kind of go out and freelance. So did that for a number of years, like right up to kind of 2011. And then I took a role with GameStop. So I spent 5 years with GameStop as their kind of e-commerce kind of manager for Northern Europe. Didn't start as that. Started as a kind of junior web designer and moved up to e-commerce manager for Northern Europe. Really cool place to work. Kind of pretty exciting. Nice product. Obviously, video games is a interesting enough industry. The remit was pretty broad as well, which was nice. So I think, like, in terms of being given an opportunity, that was huge in my career in terms of being able to really kind of grab hold of something and make it my
Yeah,
own. I had
very
a hell
cool.
of a lot of experience out of that company. So from there, I decided it was probably a good time to kind of go agency side and experience that. So I took a role with Monsoon Consulting. They kind of very much focus on, well, a split, I guess, across kind of content and commerce. Very much a tech delivery house. And what I kind of went into to try to do was add a bit of kind of client success to what they were doing. Obviously, really, really good at, really strong in terms of kind of tech delivery and product delivery. But I guess they were running into a thing where most of their clients were kind of going, "Oh, that's great, you built me a website. Now, how do I make money out of it?" So I kind of went in to do that. Did that for a little while. Then kind of was fortunate enough to, I guess, get a role at one of Ireland's kind of I suppose, most recognized brands anyway in terms of the retail industry with Eason. So went and spent about 2 years with Eason. Huge project there, rolled out complete replatform of e-commerce, um, like literally from the ground up, and then also a CRM project as well. So that was kind of something I hadn't really done before. The e-commerce project there as well was really interesting because they were really trying to go for a full omni-channel experience for customers and kind of roll it out across the kind of in-store experience as well as online, tying in all of our marketing channels as well. So it was a really, really interesting project. There for about 2.5 years, and then moved on to Diageo. Actually, I believe you had one of my colleagues from the Guinness Storehouse on, Phoebe Dunn, is somebody I worked with actually.
Yeah, yeah,
So
Phoebe's great. Yeah,
yeah, she is. She's great. So was with Diageo. Actually, I joined the kind of tail end of 2019, and we all know what happened at the start of 2020. Um, so very interesting. I was Guinness Storehouse was the kind of remit in there. I kind of went in again. That kind of replatforming and kind of system side was the bit I really went in for. They were looking to kind of replatform their ticketing solution for Guinness Storehouse. And I guess a rebuild the website was included in that as well. But an interesting one, obviously very much impacted by COVID, I suppose, and the remit of that role completely changed. I think Phoebe probably mentioned Shopify, and that's something that we rolled out while I was there as well across the retail, and some really really exciting stuff. I mean, I'm sure like Phoebe would have said, Guinness is a really cool brand to work for. Like it's I guess it's iconic and you know um, really really cool place to work.
yeah,
Diageo is obviously a monster. It's a massive company. Like it's and then to work for such an iconic Irish brand as well on top of that was a really brilliant experience. Get onto my current role then. So I've been with Velo Coffee Roasters here in Cork. I'm here since February, so we're operating UK and Ireland at the moment. With e-commerce, we separate stores for both. Um, Look, the idea is we're a small enough company here, so I guess my remit is a lot broader probably than it's been in any other organization I've been in. The responsibility is a bit bigger. I guess the challenge is there, but it's pretty exciting. It's a really cool product, multi award winning. It's always handy when the product kind of speaks for itself. All you've got to do is put
yeah.
it in front of people in the right way. So it definitely makes things easier when you can really stand behind the product.
You'll be delighted to hear I'm a coffee drinker of Velo as well. So,
Oh, very good, very
um,
good.
yeah. So I am one of your target audiences, I suppose. I must say, Darragh, in terms of the show, your experience, I think, would sing to anyone. As in, you've had one just. I'd say you're one of the most hireable people in Ireland for the digital space because you've worked SMEs, but you've also worked large corporates. Um, I also see maybe I'm just making this a general assumption, but you don't hang around long enough to go stale in your knowledge. I find sometimes some people are very good and very motivated staying when they're staying at a company for a long time, but usually by dipping out of industries and going into new ones and maybe going from B2C to B2B or vice versa, it keeps you on top of your game and it gives more strings to your bow. So I can only imagine the amount of experience that you could go through. But to summarize, what would you see as your main go-to strengths in digital at the moment?
It's funny, and the way you mentioned it there, I guess what I would see as my key strength is actually that adaptability, um, which probably has led to me. I suppose maybe I get the itch a little sooner than some might because I do like I kind of I like to learn new things, like to experience new industries, and actually to be fair, one of the things that I really really like about where I am now, I suppose it's changing all the time. It's a company that's growing so quickly. From week to week here things are different. Whereas I think maybe okay, Guinness Storehouse is probably a bad example because of the time frame we're talking about in terms of there was a lot of change there at that time because of COVID really. But organizations like that and GameStop and places like that would have been very settled. I do tend to end up coming in and ripping things up and starting again when I join. I don't know if that's coincidence or if that's something in my personality. But yeah, I think it's that adaptability and flexibility, and I guess I try not to tie myself to any particular area. I guess you could say I'm a bit of a generalist in terms of digital. I don't really focus on any one given aspect of digital. E-commerce has been the thing that I've ended up in, but I think that's because it ties together all the elements really.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely love that. So, obviously, design has been part of your initial career. Has that kind of benefited you moving forward? And would you advise anyone that might be starting off in digital that could be listening how important or any advice you could give them there around that area of digital?
I do think it's an interesting one to start in, because I certainly from my experience of working on the tech side of things a lot, um, if you start by understanding the tech, you can almost limit your creativity in terms of what the solution might be, because you probably understand that it might be more difficult from a tech perspective to implement what's probably the best design. Whereas if you start from the perspective of a designer, um, and let the tech be someone else's problem, I guess. I think that's probably an advantage. All right. I think obviously beyond the blatantly obvious, it gives you a bit of an advantage in terms of user experience and I suppose branding and that element of it and just like coming up with advertising that's eye catching and engaging. That from that perspective, it's been an advantage. But I do think more so on the kind of not being limited by the tech, only being limited by your ideas.
Yeah, brilliant. And is there a campaign or any of your previous work that you're really proud of or you made really successful?
There's one of these that always comes to mind anytime because this is something that comes up as an interview question fairly regularly. It goes back to GameStop. We ran a campaign around, and this was the reason I'm so proud of this one is it was kind of combination of a marketing campaign and a tech solution that kind of hadn't existed previously. So we basically it was around the launch of Grand Theft Auto 5, and GameStop's business model revolves around the idea of you know grading games in and pre-owned games. So it's something that they without the kind of trade-in model they might struggle to compete in terms of price against discounters. They're not really a discounter. So the idea would be that in store, what you would do is you trade two games in and get the latest pre-order title, in this case Grand Theft Auto, for €5, €10, whatever. It would be heavily discounted, and it gives you that ability to advertise it as get Grand Theft Auto for €10. Of course, that was something that was incredibly difficult to execute online because you're not bringing your two games into a GameStop store and trading them in. We wanted to, I suppose, make this an online thing, so we were able to build something out where basically like a nearly reverse logistics project where we were basically allowing customers, we would send them out an envelope, they'd send their games back into us. That would come with credit off their pre-order and like a complicated enough system. But I guess the reason I was so proud of it was something that I think even internally in the organization it was just considered too much hassle to do, and we just proved that it was possible. Ended up being their for GameStop in Ireland, it was their highest ever online pre-order. So yeah, a really successful one and one that was really fun to work on as well, I guess.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible. I can imagine you've seen a lot of changes, especially with your e-commerce experience throughout the years of, could have been Google AdWords in the beginning and went into Google Shopping and, you know, the Facebook, the whole Meta marketplace came into play and all these areas. But looking at the landscape at the moment, is there any advice you could give anyone listening about opportunities in the current landscape? Like if you started a business now, depend if it was product based, e-commerce based, where would you tell them to focus?
I think marketplace is probably where I would start. And not necessarily Facebook Marketplace, but marketplaces in general. It's a really good kind of method of proven demand for a product, e-commerce based product. I think. Um, Obviously, you probably want to bring it back to a kind of direct sales model if you can. But I think marketplace is you're really you're leveraging the whole kind of I suppose scale of these market, be that whatever it is, eBay or Facebook Marketplace, Etsy, any of these places, like it's a really good way of getting your product in front of people in a pretty low risk way. Obviously, direct to consumers become pretty well. It's become a lot more simplified now with platforms like Shopify. Um, so I think that's
Amazon as well, I suppose, is the big
yeah,
one that
Amazon,
you're.
absolutely, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's obviously the understanding that you're going to give up a percentage when you're on any of these platforms, but in terms of a low risk way to get to market, I think that any of those marketplace kind of places are the way to go. I think for a startup certainly.
The cool thing about Amazon, and I actually agree with your point. By the way, I think it is a really good strategy for a business. And probably you have one product, you use platforms like Amazon, you take advantage of their whole FDA section, so you can have next day shipping and Prime, and so you send off your stock and manage it that way. So you're not even hosting a lot of your stock, and then from that, yeah, obviously with the long term goal of going direct sales to your own website, be almost you're willing to say that product is going to last X amount of time, and you build a bit of an audience and network in the hope that you build out a brand further on. We're just talking strategies, I suppose, but I see that working really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at something like an Amazon, it's actually very and like people will look at the maybe the fee that Amazon take and think that's a lot of money to pay over, but I think that's usually because of the lack of maybe understanding of just quite how expensive it is to get into warehousing and fulfillment yourself. The manpower is required to do that. The expertise that's required to do it. It's not a simple thing to do. Not in an
Yeah.
efficient way. You can do it on a small scale, but as soon as if you want to go international, to be quite honest with you, like you really need a fulfillment partner unless you're building custom fulfillment solutions yourself.
Yeah, really well said. And is there any particular softwares you use that are daily that really enhance your role?
Um, you know, Shopify is the platform we're on here, and it's something that I swear by. And honestly, it's a real game changer for particularly for small to medium enterprise. It's incredibly flexible. It's so fast to deploy. A really really great way of kind of rapid prototyping things. Kind of obviously a really growing app marketplace, which means it's very extensible. Um, I guess the other bits that I kind of started to lean on. Again, this is very e-commercey, but there's an app actually for Shopify called Lifetimely. Um, Really cool tool. Just pulls together all your kind of it's basically an analytics tool, but what it does is pulls together your marketing spend through all the different channels that you're advertising across, be that Google Ads, Meta, TikTok, and basically pulls in all those costs so that you get a blended ROAS across all of your channels. It'll also take like if you've input all your cost of your goods, you'll get an actual cost of goods sold. Um, might sound like a really really simple thing, but like that's the sort of thing that for smaller companies that don't maybe have complete ERP platforms to leverage, that's a really really smart tool at a pretty low cost.
I would say 50% of businesses don't have that correctly set up,
I'd
maybe
say
more.
I'd say about 80% of businesses haven't a clue what they're spending, what their return on ad spend is.
Yeah, yeah. From all factors,
Hmm.
and like just Facebook can say they got so many conversions, and then you have your Googles who say they have so many
Yeah,
conversions, and you have your Google Analytics, which will only show you certain visibility on some traffic sources and some not. They all, it doesn't matter what kind of system, you have to work out a way of divvying all that up. So that is an excellent example. Away from your strengths, Dara, someone like you, like, what would you be looking in upskilling into? Is there any areas you would want to learn more about, or are you just refreshing your tools and in where you're comfortable in now?
Um, one of the things that I kind of really would like to know more about, and I suppose upskilling, is the area of automation. I mean that, I suppose, from a bit more of a holistic standpoint, not necessarily any specific process of automation, but I guess like it's more around the strategy of automation, and figuring out which processes should be automated, and where you know, I guess one of the things that I've been looking into a lot is a thing called value stream mapping, um, and being able to decide like where the value in processes are, where the wait times are, your kind of lag and lead stuff, and figuring out exactly how you can automate processes in order to, I suppose, maximize productivity. That might be a bit of a boring one, but it's when you go to scale, I think that's something that's hugely important. So it's an area I'm really looking at the moment.
Brilliant. And just to add to that, is there anywhere where you look currently for new information or insights?
Sure. Do Medium's really good. Pretty much every topic you can imagine is covered over there. It's basically just a blogging platform. So, but I find it excellent. There's some really, really good content out there. Um, because with Velo here, we're obviously part of a lot of Enterprise Ireland programs, being an SME. They actually have a great library of resources. It can be a really good place to look. And obviously, like again, if you're a small business, particularly, those sort of supports are excellent. We were just on the Go Global for Growth program with EI. Got quite a lot out of that as well. The other thing I'd say is all those sort of courses and events, the actual, usually the best part of them is actually the networking you get at them, and I think that's a great resource. You want to learn new things, is speak to other people in the industry, and not necessarily
Yeah.
in your direct industry. Like, I mean, the particular course we were on, there was actually a number of construction companies, and we probably picked up a lot off them. You wouldn't think it's you wouldn't think they were industries we'd pick up a lot from, but we did.
Yeah, business is business at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Everyone's handling money and moving money around and marketing and trying to get their name out. No matter the industry, there is a couple of fundamentals that, if you meet one that has their operations really tight
that's
and
it.
excelling really well, surely there's something to learn from. So yeah, really good points. Probably linked to that, is there any areas in the industry as a whole that you might you're looking into that you think is going to be exciting in the future? Anything coming up?
I guess the stuff that's kind of coming up, I guess, that everyone talked about is the idea of I suppose, the metaverse and AR and VR, and they are interesting areas, and I think they've got a place in e-commerce. I still think we're a long way off, but it does seem to be the next space, or certainly it's been pushed to be the next space. It'll be interesting to see if that actually turns out to be the case. There's certainly been a lot of money put behind it. It will be interesting to see the kind of what that will mean in practical terms for commerce. That's an area I'm kind of interested to see and see what the investment in it will be, and who will be the kind of marketplace holder on that one. I know certainly Meta are trying to be. I would say Apple might have a lot to say about that too. So it's going to be an interesting space. I'd be watching that one.
Love it. And Dara, lastly, we always ask the same question on the show, which is, if you could boil up one personality trait that you have that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
The one thing I would say is kind of don't be afraid to try. I started this by telling you that I didn't go to college or university. I have no third level education. I've learned a lot of what I've learned over the years by being self taught, just being curious and digging into things in my own spare time, and figuring out how to do things. And I think and faking it until you make it. Not saying, oh, I can't do that. Just saying, oh well, I don't have to do that now, but I will find out. And I think that attitude goes a long way. Just the willingness to give things a go. I think that's the one thing I would say is I'd bottle if I could.
Yeah, I think that's a great trait to have. If anyone wanted to reach out to you, and I'm sure there probably will be a couple of people, how can they find you? How can they find what you're up to?
Yeah, you'll get me on LinkedIn. Darragh Verschoyle over there. I'm on Instagram, TikTok at dverscoyle. I don't know, have a search of that. It's DEVERSCHOYLE.
And of course, check out Velo Coffee,
And
which is
absolutely give
yeah,
Velo a shout. You'll maybe try the coffee as well.
that's it. Thanks everyone for listening, and thank you for being on the show, Darragh.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.